Welcome to the 2400 Block Podcast with your host, Jonnyroobs.
Hey everyone, it is the first episode of 2024 and Jonathan Niziol is our guest for today. Great to have him on, and in a few, Jonathan here will openly discuss in detail about his life story, which will then lead on to the subject at hand, which centers on the many struggles that the modern man is facing. And we're also going to discuss about the importance of awareness, self-care, and getting help. And that's the reason why I got Jonathan on this show. I know his valuable input can definitely help out someone in need. So how are you doing there, Jonathan?
I'm doing great, thank you. And let me just explain to the listeners, like I did to you, I was sick last week. I'm over the sickness, but I think from coughing I had something happen with my vocal cords. So if you see me sipping, I've got some lemon tea here with honey, but otherwise I'm doing fantastic and I'm very appreciative of you having me on. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're very welcome, man. I hope you continue being well during the show as well as after. By the way, how was your New Year's? Happy New Year, everyone, by the way.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you, too. It was very good, very low-key, just stayed in. Since I quit drinking, it's just another night for me. So it was very, very low-key, but it's just crazy as we get older, right, how quickly these years seem to, tick by. I mean, We're in 2024 now. It's like, where do they go? I remember when I was young, it seemed like it took eons for a year to pass, but now they just fly by. So it was good. Yeah. How was your New Year's?
It was good. It could have been better. Somehow the hotel that my girlfriend booked for during New Year's so we can see the fireworks, on the Chicago River, it turns out they unintentionally canceled. She said we might cancel, which she didn't really say we're canceling it, but they canceled anyways, and we went forth with a different plan. So we just spent it here in the suburbs, got ourselves some food, got everyone involved, and next thing you know, it was Happy New Year's, and just like that, we're done.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'm sorry to hear about that cancellation, but at least you guys made something of it and had a good time, and spending time with loved ones, that's what's most important.
Cool. Anyways, John, before we jump right into it, tell the viewers and listeners about yourself, where you're from, and what you do for a living.
So I'm originally from Canada, born and raised in Canada. I was raised on a 500-acre cattle farm outside of a place called Peterborough, and it was a wonderful way to grow up. I grew up in the 80s and 90s. So I was very disconnected from technology. People were just starting to get Nintendos and Segas, but my parents refused to buy me one, which I now look back as being the greatest gift, because they would just say, go fall out a tree or go build something. Just go outside. And I would just go walk into the fields for 6 to 8 hours with my dogs and just, playing in ponds and forests. And so it was wonderful. I am now coming to you from Texas. I moved down here 4.5 years ago, almost 5 years. April will be 5 years. Just my dog and I moved down here, and my father now lives in Texas as of 2 years ago. I have been an international model for the last 15 years. Just passed, or it's coming up. No, sorry, in December. Just passed my 15-year anniversary of international modeling. I've been a certified personal trainer with a love and a passion for fitness and our bodies and how everything works for 13 years. And I also do some real estate investment here in Texas. I'm doing flips with my business partner, and it's something I've always been very interested in, but never had the opportunity to get into because of how expensive Canada was and stuff like that. So now that I'm here, I'm trying to take advantage of that, and that's a new venture and a whole new thing to learn about. So I'm really enjoying it.
Wow, you have different avenues when it comes to your profession.
I do.
I see you were an underwear model.
Yep, for sure. Done lots of underwear, lots of swimwear. Yeah, in the industry, there are body guys. Like for the men, there are body guys, and there are like face only guys. And I'm a face and body guy, so a lot of times I've shot a lot of body stuff and worked really hard. But there's a interesting backstory to that part of that. It's not all that glitters is gold, so we'll get into that down the line. But yeah, I'm still doing quite a bit of modeling. Still love it, and it's yeah, it's something I really enjoy. Like I said, 15 years, I'm just going strong and no signs of slowing down.
Cool. I mean, wow. This is the first time I actually talked to an underwear model, so that's really cool. I got myself some, jockey underwear and Emporio Armani, and of course this one here. I'm not sure if that's you, but Calvin Klein didn't even open it yet. But yeah, my girlfriend bought me that.
No, I shot the jockey campaign one year in just about 2.5 hours outside of Denver.
Oh.
It was pretty fun because it was my first big campaign that I landed. I was in New York at the time, and we did the casting, and I was like, oh, that went great. Like a bunch of guys, like it was, and I didn't hear anything back. I was like, darn, I guess I missed it. And I think 4 or 5 months later, my agency called me. They're like, hey, you got the booking. And I'm like, what booking? And it turns out that they had gone to, I think, Miami, LA, I think Chicago as well, and New York, and done all these castings, and they only picked 2 guys out of the whole thing, and I was one of the 2.
Oh, wow.
And then 3 women, and then they flew us out there, and we went up to the Rockies, and yeah, it was pretty wonderful. It's very true what they say of New York with regards to, modeling is, finance, anything. It's kind of the pinnacle of, and if you can make it there, if you book stuff there, it's that much harder because you're competing against the best, but it's that much more satisfying and rewarding. So, yeah, but that was a great one. Flying out for a jockey was a lot of fun. Except it was 6:30 in the morning, and I was outside when it was 30 degrees, and I was in my boxer briefs and had to pretend like I was having the most fun I'd ever had in my life. And so it's not all as glamorous as you think, but the pictures came out. So,
and they turned out great too.
Yeah. Thanks.
That's wonderful. Thanks for taking us behind the scenes over there.
Yeah.
Now, before you go deep with today's subject here, tell us a little bit about your life story. I know that correlates to what you're doing right now as well, modeling. So, yeah, you can put that with your life story. Yeah, tell us.
Fair enough. So, had a wonderful childhood. Like I said, I've always been a big athlete, very much into athletics. It's always been a very big part of my life. Playing hockey at an early age in Canada, of course, it's what we do. My parents are both immigrants. My father is from Michigan originally. My mother from Trinidad. Neither of them played hockey, but I was in Canada. They were like, get on the ice, like just go. Lacrosse is always a big part of my life as well. I ended up going to school for a scholarship, and further down the road ended up playing professionally in lacrosse. But I had a very wonderful childhood, like I said, but things really changed for me very drastically the day before my 21st birthday. And it was a day just like any other. And I had just moved I'd moved back to my family farm to live with my mom for a year because she was going through a bit of a rough time, and I needed to get my head on straight as well. And I just moved out 11 days earlier, and to get my first big boy job. I was going to go sell cars at this place, at this city about 3.5 hours away. And I remember I had the morning off, and my mom had been planning, my 21st birthday celebrations, and I was going to buy fish for my fish tank. I had a 30-gallon fish tank. And I'll never forget, I was walking to the thing, and I got a call, and they asked me if I was alone or if I was at work. And it was a call from my home number, and I expected just to be like, hey, this is the plan for tomorrow. We're going to come up. We're going to go for dinner here, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah. And I put my hand on the door to go in, and they said, your mom died. And I was just shocked. Floored. My mom wasn't sick. She wasn't battling anything. Like, it was a very sudden, very unexpected. She was absolutely my best friend, my biggest supporter. My life as I knew it was over. It was never, and it would never be the same. Soon after that, I started to deal with mental health issues. I was diagnosed with having severe anxiety, clinical depression, panic disorder, and self-harm. And I didn't know what anxiety was back then. It wasn't talked about. This is 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It wasn't talked about. I had never heard the words anxiety. Like I said, thankfully I had a childhood where I didn't experience that. And I just thought I was going crazy. I thought I was losing it. I'm like, I nobody's ever felt this way before except for me, and I'm losing it. Like, that's how I felt. I finally was diagnosed and started to understand and was put on some medication. But I noticed that I had a little way of helping myself deal with it, and that was drinking. And I had always been a drinker, but I drank too much at times, but I could also stop too. Like, I remember coming home from college one summer and just deciding that I was going to not drink for 3 months, and I just didn't. Drinking after my mom passed away and I started dealing with this mental health issues, it went from a want and it became a necessity. And pretty quickly I found myself a full-blown, non-functioning alcoholic. And I was gaining weight. Everything around me was crumbling. It was my relationships, my finances, my work, my relationships with my girlfriends, whatever, you name it. Everything around me is crumbling. My friends. But I didn't want to admit what the problem was, because that was my crutch, and I always found some other excuse as to what else it could be. And until one morning, I remember I was sitting there, and it was 8 o'clock in the morning. I called in sick from work. I had the shakes because I was getting alcohol withdrawals in the morning. And it's 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm opening my first beer for the day. And I sat there and I just started crying. And I said, that's it. I'm an alcoholic. It's got me. Like, I don't know how I'm going to stop, but it's got a hold of me. So I spent better part of 3 years in that space, and really just declining, continually declining into the depths of alcoholism and depression and all that kind of stuff. But I got very lucky, and the reason was because I had a very bad case of acute pancreatitis when I was 25, and it was so severe to the extent that I spent just under a month in the hospital. I had to have 5 blood transfusions while I was in there. I lost 40 pounds in the first 2 weeks, and then 60 pounds in total. And I almost died twice. They told me there were 2 times in which I almost died. And being 25, you think, you kind of think you all figured out. And I owned a couple cars, and I'd already bought a house. So I kind of thought I was a bit of a whatever. I had it going on, and that was very humbling for me to lay there in that hospital bed and the silent ward at night, and just to hear the beeps of the machines that are keeping you alive, and having a catheter and having things going up my nose and having like all these people rushing around at different times. And so I came out of that. The doctor told me before I left, they said, look, the severity of pancreatitis that you had, we don't know why it was so severe, because what you had is what we see in somebody who's like 70 and they've been drinking every day for the last 55 years.
Oh, wow.
Like, people like kids like you come in and, maybe they spend a night in here and they go on their way, and he said, look, alcohol is not an option for you. And I told him, after going through what I just did, like the pain and all that, I said, that's it. I'm done. I'm not touching it ever again. So that was when I got sober from alcohol, but I didn't do any programs or anything like that. But that's also when I started to gain this appreciation for my body and for our bodies, and how wonderful the human body is. Because what it does effortlessly putting, and I'm not a preachy non-drinker. I don't think everybody should be sober. I don't think everybody should eat, boiled chicken and rice. Like, I don't think that at all. But I am fascinated by how my body let me abuse it by drinking and eating fast food and not exercise, doing all those things, but somehow it kept me going. So I wanted to learn what happens on the flip side. What happens when I take better care of it, and, learn more about. So I started to really get a passion for fitness. And then, going back to lacrosse, I was having the best season of my life, and I ended up having a career-ending knee injury, which I was like, okay, I'm 26, maybe it's time to hang it up. Like, indoor lacrosse is pretty physical, and it doesn't pay very well. So going to work with black eyes and stitches, and I've got some scars still that are around here. That was kind of getting a little bit tired. So I thought I'd hang the stick up, but then I thought I'd look into some modeling, because now I was in shape, and my mom had actually been a model in the late 70s and early 80s. And I went to Toronto and found out some of the higher profile agencies and just went for open castings and got a couple contracts and signed my first modeling contract. So let me just take a sip of my tea here to keep my throat going.
All good.
So I signed my first modeling contract and I start modeling locally, and then I got the opportunity to travel internationally. And I was working for my father at the time. He's an architectural designer, and I was an architectural planner. And with his blessing, he said, what you've been through and how hard you've worked to get yourself, to where you are now. He's like, that's great. If you can do this and make a business of it, then sure. So my first stop was Cape Town, South Africa. I went as far as possible. They're like, wow. Do you want to go to Cape? Do you want to go to South Africa? I'm like, yes, I do. So I had no idea what to expect. I didn't know if there were going to be lions walking down the street. I didn't know. I mean, I'd only ever seen National Geographic, typical, uneducated. I mean, I just didn't know. Wonderful place, incredible people, very affordable cost of living, stunning scenery. But when I got there, I noticed, for me personally, I'm a bit of a larger frame guy and naturally put on muscle, just genetically. But I was still working out like a professional athlete. And I was looking at all of these guys on the covers of these magazines. And I was like, okay, I need to be like big and when I got to these bigger markets outside of Toronto, I was like twice the size of these guys. And I thought, okay, I started to plant the seed of a bit of body dysmorphia. Whereas even though I was booking work and doing pretty well, I was like, well, I booked this job, but this guy booked this, and this job. Why didn't I get those as well? Maybe I need to be more like this guy. So that kind of like that seed was being planted. I was doing it in my own head.
Yeah. So
I spent 6 months in South Africa, came back to Canada for a week, and then I drove down to Miami for my next one. And this is my first major U.S. market. I've got representation in Miami. So I get there, and the second day I'm there, I still haven't found a place to live yet. And my agency calls me and they're like, we got a casting for you. It's actually it's what's called a go-see, which is basically a private casting where if you're new to a market or if you have new pictures come out, a photographer or designer might ask to see you specifically. And I was new to it, so I was like, great, that's awesome. That's 2 days here. That's great. But my booker said that, just so you know, this casting's going to be at this guy's house. I'm like, okay. It's going to be at 8:30 at night. And I was like, okay. And this guy's notoriously a bit of a creep. And I was like, okay.
Asterisk.
Yeah, exactly. But if he likes you, he'll book you a lot. Like, okay. So this is back in 2010. So I go to the casting, and he was a swimwear and underwear designer. And like I said, it was just me and him. I'm at his house. I was going to the bathroom, change and do a couple things. He's like, I'd like to see you try a couple things on. Showed him my portfolio, here are my pictures. And it's not unnormal for us models to walk into somewhere and then go put on like a Speedo.
Yeah.
It's pretty, it sounds very foreign to a lot of people, but it's part of the gig. And so that wasn't that big of a deal. But every time I came out with a new piece of clothing, like I was 3 pieces of clothing in, and he went from like standing and evaluating like how the fit was and stuff to now he's like sitting, and now he's sitting on a stool like at my crotch level. And I'm like, okay, whatever. He's just checking out the fabric, and like he's taking more and more time to check out the fabric. And I'm like, dude, this is Speedo. You can't check out like that much fabric. Like, what are we doing here? Like, my crotch is here and his face is here. I'm like, whatever. So he goes and has me trying another one, and when I came back out this time, he pulled my pants down and he started to sexually assault me.
Oh, man.
And my first thought was shock. Was like, what? Like, I couldn't believe that this line was being crossed. My second thought, because of my background from lacrosse and then also from, my mom passing away and just, I've been in a lot of physical altercations. I've been in a lot of fights, whether it was sports or bar fights or street fights, whatever. I know how to handle myself. I've lost a lot of fights, but I've also won a lot of fights. So my next thought was, I'm going to beat this person to death. Then I thought to myself, well, no, because then I'm going to go to jail. I'll get attempted murder or even worse, murder. I decided to I said, you know what? I pushed them away. Mm-hmm. I was like, I need to get out of this situation. I went back. I was like, F you. I don't want your, don't touch me. I don't want your business. I'm out of here. Whatever. I left. Well, I didn't tell anybody at all. I didn't tell my agency because I was ashamed. I was embarrassed. I was confused. I was mad. Every emotion you could think of, I was. But at the same time, I didn't want to be known as like a troublemaker, because back then, before the Me Too movement, if you kind of ruffled feathers, it would go from one designer to their photographer friend to that designer, and you would kind of get blacklisted. So I just didn't tell anybody. But about 2 weeks after that, I started an 8-year battle with an eating disorder, because I let this body dysmorphia and this stuff that just happened to me and my mom and everything, I let it get the better of me. And I call myself, I always say that I'm what you would call, or what I would call a functioning bulimic. Mm-hmm. Whereas I would wake up and I would eat my healthy oats. I'd have my, lunch. I'd have my dinner. Everything was fine. I wouldn't purge it up or anything like that. It was when I was alone with my thoughts, and when I was, I'd come home and be alone, and I needed some kind of release. I would go get like $150 worth of junk food, just, eat myself like sick, and then get rid of it. And that was, like I said, that was a cycle that lasted for about 8 years.
Oh, wow.
And so I went to New York next. I went to London, England, went back to New York, and I was starting to get kind of like, you get worn out traveling constantly. You're having to make new friends. You start dating a girl and you have to leave and that kind of stuff. So it can kind of like living out of a suitcase. So I wanted, like I said, fitness was becoming a big passion of mine. I wanted to open my own fitness business, start training people. I wanted to get a dog who's sitting over there sleeping. So I decided to come back to Toronto and put down roots and be in Toronto, plus being close to my dad and stuff like that. I'd been, constantly traveling. So I did that. But when I got back, I didn't have the distraction now of traveling. Traveling was a distraction, as well as the bulimia was a distraction. But now I was coming home to the same place every day, and I didn't have that distraction. So I started down the path of drugs, and because drinking wasn't an option, I'll never drink a sip of alcohol ever again. But I smoked weed in college. I was like, I'll start smoking weed again. But when I do something, I have a very addictive personality, and I'm all in. Like when I play lacrosse, I want to go until I'm a professional lacrosse player. When I drink, I go until I'm an alcoholic. When I, work out, I want to work out until, I could barely, whatever. I have a
You're
very...
so focused, whatever you're doing.
Yeah, just so obsessive focus. Uh-huh. So I didn't just, casually smoke a little bit here and there. I was smoking like 2 ounces a week. Mm. And so much so that I'd be embarrassed to go back to my dealers and buy. I'd have like 4 or 5 different people, because I was embarrassed about the amount that I was buying and smoking. It was starting to change my personality. I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's just weed, you can't get addicted to it. But I totally disagree with that, because like any other addiction, it was ruining my quality of life, my finances, just the same way with alcohol, my relationships. I was becoming, just like when I was an alcoholic, unreliable to people around me. And I also I started taking Adderall, because I'd heard about, hey, you can get really lean, but you can get really productive at the same time. So I went to my doctor and I told him that I had ADD, which I don't. And I got Adderall and started abusing that. And I would go on these 4 or 5 day binges where I'd be up for like 4 or 5 days straight, just doing Adderall, smoking weed, and I'd also be doing nitrous, like inhaling whippets. Uh-huh. And every time I came out of one of those binges, and that's something I've talked about recently on my Instagram and TikTok, it's like I wasn't starting from zero again. I was like resetting to farther back from. So like, say I was awake for 4 days. There's 4 days I just lost. Now it takes another 2 days for the stuff to get out of my system. So there, and then now I've been off the gym for 6 days, and I've been, had my phone off for 6 days. So now I have to go back and make up for all that kind of stuff. So I kept doing this like reset thing where I was setting myself back. Eventually the weed started to turn on me, and instead of it being like hey, I can just numb out and kind of forget about my stuff, it became like a very anxious, uncomfortable place. And instead of enjoying just being high, I would be obsessing about the things that I should be doing for my business, but I didn't have enough motivation to do. And I was like, this isn't fun. I'm done with it. I had a real moment I had many rock bottoms. I've had dozens of rock bottoms, and I think a lot of other addicts that I talk to can relate to this. I had so many times where I dumped the weed in the toilet, dumped the Adderall in the toilet, flushed it down. That's the last one. Never again. Mm-hmm. 2 days later, it's like, I'm kind of getting the itch. Like, I'll just get a little bit, and just a little bit and be fine. So anyway, I finished with the weed, came to that same conclusion with the Adderall and with the nitrous, but I still had all these thoughts and all these things going on. So the last thing I went to was these over-the-counter back, muscle relaxing back pills. And you could just buy them off the shelf. In each pill, there was 500 milligrams of methocarbamol, which is the muscle relaxing ingredient, and then 200 milligrams of ibuprofen. But like I said before, if I do something, I don't just do it, I do it. So I was taking 100 of these pills every single day.
Oh, man.
I was ingesting 50,000 milligrams of methocarbamol and 20,000 milligrams of ibuprofen every single day. Wow. I'd go train my clients. I'd go to a shoot. Mm-hmm. I'd go to the gym. Everything would be fine. And I'd come home and I'd be alone with my thoughts. And I would just dump a handful of 30 or 40, take them, and then sure enough, I'd go through 100 every day. And that happened that went on for probably like 4 to 6 months. I'll have to double check, but I started noticing that I was very lethargic, and I just figured it was because I took 100 pills the day before. Like, I started noticing I was getting very lightheaded. And again, I'm just like, well, I took 100 pills the day before. Like, of course I'm lightheaded. But I started having fainting spells. And I fainted once. I remember Bailey, I woke up and my dog Bailey was licking my face. And, my anxiety started to really go through the roof because I was starting to think, what if I'm driving and I faint and hurt somebody? What if I'm in the grocery store or something? So I finally came to the point where I realized, hey, it's these pills that are doing it. So I stopped taking them. And the next morning I was supposed to go to a shoot. And I remember I was brushing my teeth and my knees were buckling. I literally couldn't hold the weight of my own body. So I called my agency. I said, look, I can't go to the shoot. I have to go to the ER. Went straight to the ER, and it turns out that I had major internal bleeding from an ulcer in my intestines. But I didn't see it because I wasn't passing blood when I was like throwing up, and I wasn't passing it in my stool or my urine. It was just in my intestines being leaked into my body. So I said, okay, I'm done with that. And that was my final, something's got to change moment. Because I'll give myself credit. I always stuck with, Adderall is kind of serious, but I always stuck with like the baseline drugs for the most part. Mm-hmm. But I did a lot of them. Because I knew the moment that I took cocaine or an oxy whatever or hydro whatever, my life was over. And I got to that point now where I was like, okay, I'm 35 years old. I've got a major internal ulcer or intestinal ulcer from this. I either find a new substance or I get my act together because I don't want to live this way anymore. I've been doing this for 15 years. I've been doing this and distracting myself. And that's when I decided to put aside all of the stigmas and everything I had about therapy and decided to go to therapy and to face all the things that I've been running away from or just been compartmentalizing for the longest time, and to try and live for the first time at 35 as a sober, functioning adult, because I'd never been that before. So I had to learn that. And I always say things got a lot darker before they got lighter, because all these nice little compartmentalized boxes that I had stuffed everywhere started to pour in, and I didn't have a substance to take it away. It was just, but you know what? With that, like, this isn't going to beat me. I'm going to beat it. Or that athlete mentality, whatever it is. I said, no, I'm doing this. And there are so many times where I thought I wasn't going to make it, and I just wanted to take the easy way out and whatever. And I was like, no, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep pushing. And that's what I did. And I went to a therapist and learned the tools to be able to manage the things that I've been through, my mental health and life as a sober, like I said, functioning adult. And that was about 6 or 7 years ago now. Like 6 years ago. Yeah, about that, 6.5 years ago. And that's what I'm doing ever since. And I'm very grateful that I have. And it's just within the last year that I've been talking about this more publicly, because first of all, I was ashamed of the sexual assault and the bulimia, because I thought, those are not manly things to happen to somebody or to deal with. But I've gotten to this point now where it's like, I'm not ashamed of my past. I'm proud of who I am and all the things that I've gone through. I've also learned to forgive myself, first of all, for the things that I've done and I've chosen, like drugs and alcohol and, all the money spent, all the time spent. I forgive myself because I was trying to do my best with what I had. And that's gone. I can't get the money back, even though I wish I could. I can't get the time back. And I forgive myself for that. But I also forgive myself for my mom passing away, for the sexual assault and the things that have happened to me that have been out of my control. I also lost 3 best friends. I forgive myself for those things as well, because those are unfortunate facts of life that I didn't ask for, but they happened. And I can't change it, but it's made me who I am today. And I'm trying to keep growing and learning, but I'm proud of who I am today and trying to continue to, like I said, learn and grow. But I guess that's kind of what puts us at where we are today.
Yeah, that was powerful. You went through a whole lot, my friend, and I just got to commend you on doing a good job. It's good to know, there was that warning sign that you had to stop, and you just got to have that fortitude to take it to the next level and recycle all of whatever that was in your body, whatever's in your mind, whatever's clouding in your thoughts, and just to start fresh. And hopefully, for many out there that are facing almost the same exact thing, hopefully they can get a fresh start. And by the way, how can one, can get that kind of help that you have? Does it start just yourself? It starts from within?
I think to an extent, yes. I think it does start from within for sure. Like, I had people telling me for years, you shouldn't drink so much. And, I kept the drug stuff pretty well hidden, but the few people that knew what was going on, they, but I was like, yeah, whatever, I'll get around to it. Like, I can stop whenever I want to. It wasn't until I decided that I had enough that I went and decided to do something about it. But I always say too, like, whether it's mental health, addiction, whatever, I think it's really important to go and see a medical professional and to go and work with somebody who can help you. And it's great to talk to your friends. It's great to talk to, your family and stuff like that. But if you are dealing with something, like, go find out what you're dealing with. And then, like I said, I didn't know what anxiety was. So once I was diagnosed with it, I tried to learn the more about it and continue to learn about it until today. Because the more you know, like, it's like the devil like it's learning about it and understanding why your body's reacting a certain way in certain situations. And same with depression. Like, am I just having an off week, or has it been like 6 months that I've been down? And like understanding those differences. So yeah, I would say first it starts from within, but then don't be afraid to reach out to whether it's a friend, but I would highly recommend going to a medical professional and speaking to somebody and find somebody that can help you, whether it's, with medication or with it's talking, whatever it is.
Yeah, I admit I do have some weaknesses as well, especially on the social front. Thanks to COVID, it birthed this podcast. It gave me the chance to know people, to get to talk to them remotely, and to just talk about certain topics, things that are uplifting,
Right.
especially during that time. My goodness.
Oh yeah.
So much on our minds.
Oh,
But then
sure.
I was able to take the podcast further seasons later. Like right now, like I'm talking to you, I've always been camera shy. I've always not
Really?
comfortable looking at myself at the camera. Sometimes when I do some of these episodes, I cringe.
Right.
I'm not comfortable, but now getting the hang of it as each episode goes by, I realize I'm not perfect. I accept the way that I am. I am socially awkward. That's how I've been when I was growing up. Mom always kept us at home. She didn't really like us participating in things like the boys' club or that kind of thing, or involved with community. Now, we were just stuck at home, me and my brothers. We were just basically watching what was on the TV or listening to the
right.
music, and that basically was our the entertainment was pretty much our teacher. Mom and Dad were always busy at work, so we were just left with the TV. It was just cable TV and music and movies back then. So, and if you're wondering what the 2400 Block podcast is, it's where I grew up in a little neighborhood in Norfolk, Virginia, and I gotten to know kids around my age, and we just like to join together and just talk about what's the hottest thing out there, besides the girls,
awesome.
of course.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's very cool. I like that.
Yeah, but I'm just glad to be open now, to be letting people know about my problems, whatever it is on my mind. I do have some times where I feel depressed. Sometimes I wish there were things I could have accomplished, but because of my irrational decisions, some of which have hurted my mom, and to this very day we still talk about it, even though she's over there all the way in Virginia and I'm over here in Chicago area. We're still talking, and we're getting closer now more than ever. But she was the main reason why I left. I just felt like I didn't have time to grow when I was with them, and to this very day, my brothers are still over there with them, and I'm the only one that moved further on. And, and I'm proud of myself for taking that initiative.
Oh, for sure.
Just to prove to
For
myself.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not an easy step to take too. And like you said, with regards to being on camera or moving away from Virginia, I think life happens outside of our comfort zone.
Yeah.
And it's very nice and comfortable to be in our comfort zone. And I mean, there are necessary, if there's a pit of rattlesnakes, I'm not going to go play in it.
Uh-huh.
But if there's something that I find that doing my first podcast, I was super nervous and super anxious about it, but I was like, I want to do this. I feel like I have this is my purpose. I want to try and get my story out there and connect to other people. I have to do this. And same thing with just picking up and moving to Texas, and like with what you did, and just picking up and leaving, your support group and taking the journey over to. I think it's important to remember that life happens outside of our comfort zone, and it's good to put ourselves in uncomfortable situations a lot, because we'll learn a lot about ourselves and we'll grow a lot as well.
Yeah, you're right, man. You're right. Wow, man, what a great episode we're having so far.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's great so far.
Yeah, it's just great to form, friendships with the guests I've had so far, and hopefully you're going to be included on that list as well. I just like to just keep in touch with all of you every once in a while, see how everyone's progress is.
Absolutely, that's wonderful. That's one of the things for sure. And I love doing these because meeting people like yourself, and it's inspiring that you're putting this platform out there, especially as somebody, you said, who's introverted and camera shy. It's like,
yeah,
dude, what are you doing? But it's so awesome that you're doing it. It's like you have no business doing this, but you're like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to push myself. And meeting awesome people like yourself who are doing this and making a change and stuff. And then, like I said, connecting and finding new, like, you're over in Chicago. We would never in a million years, unless I was, had a layover in Chicago O'Hare and I bumped into your like shoulder maybe, we never would have ever crossed paths. But it's wonderful how, technology and these kinds of things can happen, and we can come together and have interesting and important conversations, and talk about these things and talk about fun stuff too. But I think it's it's for sure on the friend list for sure, bud.
Yeah. So with that in mind, with you telling your story, you're able to take that to a different platform, like you're a speaker at an event, reaching out to people.
I'm starting. I'm going to be doing public speaking soon. Starting to do that. I just want to keep continuing to get my story out there. And one of the biggest things from it is, again, I'm the farthest thing from perfect. I don't, like you said, there's never been a perfect person that's walked this earth. There never will be a perfect person who's walked this earth. I do not think I have it all figured out. I do not think that everybody should not drink, not smoke, not do drugs, not do this, not do that, and follow in my lead. No, I don't think that. I think live your life and do as you please, and whatever makes you happy, by all means. I'm not at all that kind of like a preachy person. But I want to tell my story because I do want to help people who are maybe in those situations and can relate to some of the things that I've been through, or can watch out for like I said, when having that beer after work goes from I kind of want to have a beer right now, as opposed to becomes I need to have that beer right now. That want and that need. And it's a very quick shift where that happened. That line for me was very quick. It was like, I'm going to have the boys over. We just had a good game. We're going to party. We're going to get a keg, like all that kind of stuff. And then it was like, all right, it's Tuesday. We'll go out for some drinks. The hockey game's on. And then it was like, I'm sitting at home. I need a drink. And it just happened so quickly. So I just want to keep and learning from other people too. Is like, it's wonderful when I come on and people message me on Instagram or whatever, and I can continue to learn from and like what you're saying, and learning from you, learning from other people and hearing their stories and hearing what other people have been through. Because one of the things that I learned the day my mom died is that you don't know what other people are going through. My world as I knew it was over when I heard that news. And I remember I was going back, I was going to go to the funeral home to go and see my mom, and McDonald's is still open. People are still getting gas. The highways are still full. I'm like, what is going on? Like, stop the world. Don't you understand what I'm going through right now? How are you guys all okay? And that just made me learn. And same with traveling. Like, I'd just show up, like I'd go from Miami to New York to London, and I would just be another tens of millions of people there just trying to live their life. And I would just kind of drop in and realize how small a piece of this whole thing. I'm significant, but I'm a very small piece of this whole thing. So it's really important to realize that people deserve your respect. Whether it's the person delivering your DoorDash, whether it's your person who signs your paychecks, whether it's your whatever, people deserve your utmost respect. I don't buy into muscles, money, cars, job titles, any of that makes anybody better than anybody else. Forget that. I don't have time for you if that's the way you think. Go fly a kite. I think everybody deserves the same respect because you do not know what people are going through. And if people do something to you and they lose your respect, then I'm like, okay, you had a chance, you're out. And I draw the line hard on that. But there's no such thing as a nobody. I don't care if it's somebody on the street. I don't care if like I said, everybody's a somebody. And people, you don't know what they're going through or what they've been through. So lead with grace and lead with compassion and lead with like being humble and knowing that we are just we're just a little ant trying to make our way.
Well, tiny speckles.
Yeah, just trying to make our way and living our life. But it's easy in today's society where you open your phone and it's customized for you. You call your bank and they say, hey, Mr. Niziol, how are you today? And you go to the restaurant and you can have it your way. It's like, man, maybe the world does revolve around me. And your explore page is, but I think it's very important just to, ground ourselves and to remember that. And like I said, to lead with grace, because you don't know what people are going through, and it doesn't you can't tell from the outside what's going on the inside.
I always know that life is always at a constant. It just keeps going and never stops. But it's always good to just take that time to just be outside, pause, reflect, take that deep breath. You're like, wow, I'm here. I'm alive.
Yep. Yep. It's very true. It's very true. And it's every day above ground is a great day. You know? And it's, the whole idea of, I wish I would have, today it can be the day. You get started on whatever it is. Like that's why I wanted to move to Texas, because it was in my mind. I'm a dual citizen, thankfully. I was tired of Canadian winters. It was too expensive in Toronto. I'm like, I don't want to look back at 10 years and say I should have. I'm going to take the leap of faith, and I'm going to go. And I'm going to act on it now. And same thing with now looking back at the day that I took my last drink. I didn't know that was going to be the day 16 years ago that I took my last drink of alcohol. It was just another day. It was the day before Canadian Thanksgiving, and I was just sitting at home getting drunk by myself, like normal. And that turned out to be, and same with the drugs, and same with it is really important. And I heard something recently. I heard Tom Hanks was on some kind of actors roundtable, and they were talking about what would you tell your younger self? And he said that I would tell my younger self, this too shall pass. Whether it's something great, like he just booked this role and whatever, this too shall pass. Whether it's something horrible, it's just like you said, life is always moving, and this too shall pass. And I think that's a really important thing to remember, because especially when you're in the depths of despair or in a tough time and you think it's never going to get better.
Yeah.
Well, it will. And that's what I would go back, and people have asked me, what would you tell your 21-year-old self? And I would simply say that things are going to be hard. It's going to take a long time. There's going to be a lot of ups and some really awful downs, but you will get through this. I wouldn't say don't drink. I wouldn't say don't go out. I wouldn't say any of that. I'd say this is what you need to go through, but just know that you are going to come out the other end, and you are going to be okay. And you are going to beat this. And I wouldn't change it for the world. I wouldn't change all that stuff.
Yeah.
All the stuff that I've been through, good and bad, wouldn't change it. This is what I needed to be for the person I am today. And it's what, it's how we make ourselves into who we are. So,
yeah. By the way, I was wanting to have a killer beard like what you had, but because of a mishap, I was getting this one, smooth, and next thing you know, it got caught right here. I'm like, oh no, there goes my moment. My beard is gone. I was supposed to have it for the rest of the winter, but
oh man,
yeah, get to start
you're
over
rocking
again.
The stash. You're rocking that. You pull that off really well. Yeah. But yeah, it's just interesting. Life's interesting, right? And we can never stop learning. It's an important thing to do, to realize is that, as 18, 20-year-olds, we have it all figured out. And we realize,
did I lose
the older
Jonathan
we get,
Niziol
the less
there?
we know. And
hello, John.
we can never stop learning and stop growing.
I know we're having a little bit of
and
some
I think that's
difficulty
the
if it
important
is
thing to
indeed
really
the case.
Remember and to
hopefully
live your life.
we'll get to have you back on in a few, and if not, we'll just have to proceed with the conclusion. So if I'm not able to have Jonathan with me here as we conclude, I would just like to thank him for being a part of the show.
Because I can't hear you.
He's been wonderful. Thanks very much for his testimony. Yep. I'm sure many of you guys have been inspired hearing him out, seeing what he's been through.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll keep talking.
Oh, there you go. All right. See, I was doing it just in case if you were going to disappear. But it's always good to conclude with you being back on.
Yeah. No, I was just you froze for a minute there, so I was just talking about. I was just talking still and wasn't sure. I've used Riverside before with other podcasts, so I know sometimes it can. Yeah. It can glitch like that, but it puts it all together seamlessly.
Yeah. It's gonna look good by the end.
Yeah. But no, I think it's really important. And like you said in the beginning, like you wanted to talk about like men's health issues specifically, or like what did you want to what did you want to talk about?
I've dealt with somebody before, and he was a cutter.
Okay.
But it's always good to always be that person that's willing to listen or give advice during that crucial point in time. I mean, imagine he's at that point where he's just, cutting his way through, and I was glad to stop him, and I got the blade. So,
wow.
Yep. So many years now. I think it's going to be almost 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Saved his life.
That's incredible.
Yep.
That's
he's
incredible.
He's a family man now and has a kid, so I'm very happy for him.
Yeah, that is wonderful.
But there's so much that all of us goes through. It's all based upon like your surroundings or the people that you're with, which will lead on, to the struggle that you're facing. By the way, were you mostly like by yourself when you were going through this?
Very much so. I was very insular with my addictions. Mm-hmm. I partied a little bit, but for the most part, it was like I would just kind of withdraw where everybody, once I started talking about this stuff, people who've known me for 15, 20 years, like I had no idea, like, because I was very good at hiding and lying. Some people could see some things, but yeah, I was very, very withdrawn with things. And it was usually just when I was by myself and alone with my thoughts. It's been said before, but it's like, well, it's better than feeling my feelings. I mean, yeah, I mean, I could sit here and smoke weed all night or do whatever, but hey, it's better than feeling my feelings. But now I embrace feeling my feelings and look forward to feeling my feelings and, yeah, enjoying the fact that life has its ups and downs and not just living in that gray, numbed out, comfortably numb place where everything is just kind of like blah. Like, you have a bad day, blah. You have a good day, whatever. It's like, I like the ups and downs, and the ups feel that much sweeter when you have the downs. And when you have those downs and you persevere, persistence is a massive part of my life. But when you battle and get back and work through those things, it's like, yes, like I did that. Like, and maybe it was somebody's help or whatever, but it's like, yes, like I fought through that and I got. So yeah, I was definitely doing it by myself, but now I'm just enjoying life and I notice I'm a very, I don't know, I stay to myself a lot. That's why it's good that I play hockey. I just don't, I don't go to bars and stuff like that, but I do take more time now to nurture the few friendships that I do have. Because I think that's an important thing to do and a thing I didn't do for the longest time because I was too busy being inebriated and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, if you don't mind me asking, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. When you lost your friends, are you implying that you lost them because you just disconnected from them, or did they pass away? Or
So no, two of my friends, one of them committed suicide. That was like when I just moved back to Toronto. One of them died in a car accident. And then just last June, one of my friends just died. She had an undiagnosed heart issue that happened. But I lost, and I think about them every day, and I and my mom, and I think about life in this way. Like, I'm still here, thankfully, and I have to live my life with that much more purpose and that much more for them because theirs got cut short. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to waste it. I don't want to. And yeah, of course I have days where I just sit on the couch and watch Netflix all day. Like, yeah, of course. Like that's a great day some days. But you know what I'm saying? I had that mentality about it. But I also lost a lot of friends when I stopped drinking because they were my drinking buddies. We didn't have that in common anymore. They're good people. They're great people. It's just that was our commonality. That's what we had. Same as when I stopped playing lacrosse. I lost a lot of my lacrosse buddies because we didn't have that in common anymore. And as you go through stages and phases of your life, you're going to lose touch with people because you don't have certain things in common. And that's okay. It's not like they're bad people or whatever. So I've both, but I've noticed that there are, a handful of people who have kind of stuck in from each crowd that have we've grown, together and strengthened our bond and stuff. So yeah, I'd say both. I've physically lost people and then figuratively lost people just because of life.
Yeah. I'm one of those guys that has a cell phone, but barely anyone calls it. I mean, I say I have more acquaintances than I do friends. And
Right.
the ones that I've held on to for so long, I already have 3 that already passed away, didn't even make it till 40. And
Really? Yeah.
I'm just very grateful for them to have that role in my life, or today being still an inspiration as to why
yeah.
I'm still living. So I still have them in the back of my mind, and in every random moment. Sometimes I think about this podcast, and I still think about one of my friends. Her name is Cindy, and she said to me, "John, be open. Don't be shy. Go out there, tell the whole world who you are." So,
Yeah.
wow. I mean, imagine that. A couple of years later, this is happening. Podcast is
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. But I'm very proud of you, Jonathan. Continue your walk. Let's get in touch again sometime. Maybe even meet up in Chicago. Maybe we can go around downtown.
I would love
Have some
to.
fun.
Yeah, and I'm proud of you as well, my friend.
Thanks.
I mean, I know we just have met each other, but from what we've talked about and what you've overcome and what you're doing, yeah, I'm extremely proud of what you're doing and who you are. And yeah, I consider you on the friends list now, and I take that seriously. And yeah, I do plan on going to Chicago. It's always been one of the cities that I've wanted to go to, and I want to get represented by an agency there again. So yeah, you'll definitely be getting a phone call, and I want to try that Chicago style pizza too.
Oh yeah, you must.
I want to try that. I've always been curious about that.
Yeah.
And you guys have Chicago hot dogs too, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
No ketchup on a hot dog. Just remember.
Oh, is that it? Okay.
Yeah, no ketchup.
Fair enough.
It's mustard. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're ever in the South, we'll connect and everything on social media and all that kind of stuff, but we have each other's information. And yeah, if you're ever find yourself in this neck of the woods, but yeah, we should absolutely. I'm going to be starting a podcast too within the next 6 months.
Awesome.
So I would be honored if I could call you and have you on as a guest.
Oh, I'd love to.
So yeah, it will be reverse roles. I just purchased a microphone the other day. I don't know how to work it yet, so but I've got an actual podcast mic that I can use. So one thing at a time.
Cool. And by the
But,
way,
yeah.
how can people find information about you?
I'm on all the socials. Like I said, I love hearing from people. I love connecting with people. I love people reaching out. On Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, it's Jonathan Niziol, and I'm sure you'll put that in the show notes, my first and last name. On Facebook and my website, it's Jonathan Niziol Official.
Okay.
But yeah, I love to connect with people. I love to hear about your stories. I love to learn from other people because, again, I'm just trying to learn and trying to make my way through life like everybody else is. So help me out, please. Like,
Most definitely.
By any means, if you guys have any tips or whatever, just conversation. I love it, and I love the community of people helping people in whatever capacity it is. I think I think like you're doing and what I'm doing, I think we just want to make the world a better place.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
there's nothing to it but that. So I think that's the most important.
Well, we made it to almost the 1 hour mark, so congratulations on making it and being my first guest of 2024.
That's awesome, man. I'm very thankful for that. And yeah, it was a breeze. It was an easy conversation. It was great. It was like talking to an old buddy. It was a very easy conversation.
Yeah, somehow it does feel like I'm talking to an old buddy.
Yeah, yeah, it does. And this doesn't always feel like that, but very good connection. And I'll say I really do appreciate you having me on and what you're doing, and you're making big differences in people's lives with what you're doing and making a priority. And yeah, I mean, just that's awesome. I commend you in the highest way for that. So keep on going.
Again, let's give it up for Jonathan Niziol.
Yeah.
All right, you take care, my friend.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, man. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for checking out this episode of 2400 Block Podcast. Don't forget to follow and subscribe.